Actually, Brian has just left, but he will be back. I was very impressed by the Dutch story. I'm Dutch, as you know, and I didn't know half of it, although I thought I knew most of it, but I did not. So I'm very pleased with the example as to how technology and society and institutions and all these things interact in, I would say, unpredictable ways. Afterwards, you can always describe them as a very logical step. But they're not. They're totally unpredictable. Anybody already has a question for Sander at this moment? Yes.
Yes, thank you for this wonderful presentation. And I would like to know, okay, you have described the step up and step down of the circle between the technology and the society. And recently, people talk a lot about that, how should I put, the technique singularity. When such a singularity happens, bang! And it seems like, it gives me feeling that once we have the singularity robot, strong AI, everything come out, all problems solved. And it's a totally different paradigm from what you described. Up, society up, technique up, and society down, technique down. So okay. What's your opinion of that?
I can be relatively short about that, and he wants me to be short. Basically, I think that the idea of progress that we're currently in over the last 2.5 centuries or so may not get us much farther than we are. I fundamentally believe that information technology enables a lot of things, but I also think, and that has not been part of my talk, although I had one slide of it at the end, that it's undermining the cohesion of our societies in a major way. One of the ways in which you can imagine that is that the web and the way that everybody can now interact with everybody is completely effacing the distinction between signal and noise. That basically means that for our societies, we're going to go through a period of chaos in which we don't know anymore which values are actually the important values. And I suspect that that is what's going to happen over the next 50 years. And so if singularity happens, and I have personally some doubts about that, but it's not going to be immediately. And I think it'll be the result of very major changes in our society. Don't forget that the information technology change is after the fact that humans got to manage matter and humans got to manage energy in the Industrial Revolution, the third very fundamental change that is going to upset our societies to the core.
You want to add anything to this? Oh. Other questions? Russell.
My name's Russell Grew, and I direct NTU's Institute for Health Technologies. It's my job to try and help create new technologies. And I must say that I'm left, after hearing both of your excellent talks, wondering about the idea of creating new technologies. Yeah. And I am not clear now whether new technologies are planned well in advance, that is imagined, just like Star Trek might have imagined a way of travelling intergalactic in the future. Whether they are the product of short-term design, deliberate exercises, bringing people together, as I think you illustrated so beautifully, or whether they happen by chance.
Brian, you want to take that one? I think that's in your...
Oh yeah. Well, all of the above. There isn't a single category. I want to talk for a moment about invention. Sander was saying that invention is when a new technology is created. Innovation is making its way into society, which is much longer term and slower. But creating new technologies can be anything, like you said, could be planned ahead. For example, radar in 1936 was very much, at least in the British government, wondering if Germany was sending fleets in a future war of aircraft, what are we going to do about this? How can we detect them? And it was very deliberate. They put out a tender really to top scientists. How can we do this? Can you think of a way using something new like radio waves or something? And they took a phenomenon that had been noticed years and years before, that is that radio waves, high frequency radio waves bouncing off something like metal, like a passing ship on a river, would distort those radio waves and there'd be an echo. So some phenomenon is typically harnessed. Somebody could be a team, it could be a committee, very often it's a single person, sees a way, oh, if we could use this phenomenon of radio waves being reflected, we could use that to detect fleets of aircraft coming. Then it usually takes several years to develop that and make that a working technology. So I've looked at dozens and dozens of cases, and for the book I was writing over, say, 10 or 15 years, and I looked at the first-hand narratives of people doing the invention, but it's usually, the common pattern is that there's some social problem, just like Sander was saying, that society needs something. And then that's kind of out there in the air. We need a solution, we need to pump water, how are we going to do that? Windmills aren't quite up to the job, etc. Somebody sees pieces lying around, and fundamentally, invention, I don't want to oversimplify it, but invention consists of seeing how to put together existing pieces to solve a problem. It's a bit like Sudoku. You say, I could solve this problem, get this to add up this way. If I could solve this other piece, I could solve this other piece if I could do such and such. That takes an awful lot of thought. It's not just bathtub inspiration. Talking to people who have done this, I work in the Silicon Valley, I've been there for 35 years, and I know a lot of people who do this, and I've got patents myself doing stuff like this, but it's really saying, if I have the following problem and all these Lego sets, what pieces can I put together to solve that problem? Sometimes that's a committee, but very often it's small teams. And the reason it tends to be simultaneous, maybe 3 or 4 teams dotted in different places see the same solution, is that the same problem comes up. Jet engines were thought up in Italy by Caproni, they were thought up in Germany by von Ohain, and they're thought up in England roughly at the same time by Frank Whittle. But it's the same problem. How do you fly aircraft high? How are we going to do that? Piston engines can't breathe. There won't be enough air to move for propellers to bite on, etc. Many places are experiencing the same problem, and people come up with much the same solution. So invention is problem solving.
We have time for, let me see, 1 or 2, depending on the length of the question and the answer.
That's it.
Good evening. I don't have a question, just following what the professor said. Now, the simple word is necessity is the mother of invention. In other words, all along, we have always been inventive and innovative because of necessity. And if you talk about technology, I mean, ancient civilization already has those technology. How does the Egyptian build the pyramids? How does the ancient Chinese build the Great Wall? So technology has been around, and it has been for many years. Just that we think of it in a modern term. But if you go back in time, it has been there all the time. Thank you.
I would put it slightly differently. I would argue, and I tried to say that with the example of the steam engine in Alexandria, that invention is, the necessity is not the mother of invention. Necessity is the mother of innovation. Necessity is the mother of spreading inventions throughout society. But there are many inventions that have not been used. I have another beautiful case, the case of the earliest iron working in Europe. That is invented 1,000 years before it is being used. And when it is used because at that point the power structure of the people who controlled the bronze mines and made a profit out of bronze weapons are disintegrating, and because iron technology is not dependent on any particular source, but iron is available everywhere, and the only thing that it is dependent on is the knowledge, it goes in a completely different way. So I think you need to distinguish here between invention and innovation. And I agree with you that innovation does not happen before society needs it. But inventions can happen, and they do happen, and they get lost in history.
Okay. You want to some comment?
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment on that. It's not always necessity, it's not always something in society pulling forth an invention. Sometimes people notice a new phenomenon and they say, oh my goodness, here's a new phenomenon, oh wow, we can use this. In 1895, Röntgen in Germany discovers X-rays, and with his X-ray apparatus he's able to put wood in front of the image and find that the X-rays can go through wood. He puts lead, they won't go through lead. He tries other things. And in particular, he asks his wife to put her hand in between the X-ray and the image, and lo and behold, he sees her hand, the rings on her fingers. It's a well-known image, and bones. And suddenly there's a kind of, oh my God, we can look into the human body. And that becomes radiology.
Okay, well, unfortunately, time is up. Time is up. The reason simply being that both Brian and Sander, yeah, that also, but that was worth it. But we need to leave at 6 o'clock to visit Sidney Brenner in time. So we cannot extend it any longer than this, otherwise we will just, he's not in a very good condition, so we need to be in time. Okay, so let me thank the speakers, both speakers, very much for their very, very good and I would say original lecture. It was about 5 or 10 minutes longer than originally planned, but that is all part of innovation and invention, so that is fine. And it was absolutely worth it, so please give them a strong applause. And then I would also like to thank the Art and Science Museum for their very wonderful hospitality today and for giving us this beautiful auditorium to have this event. I'm very hopeful that it's not going to be the last time. It's definitely the second time that we do it. So I don't know if there's anybody here that can accept my thanks. If not, then I will pass them on at a later point. And then I want to thank the audience for coming and for being such good audience. Unfortunately, I cannot thank you for very many questions, but the few questions that we had were very good. So thank you, and we have our next meeting in November. I think it's 20th of November. I don't exactly know where the location is, but we'll let you know, and anyway, it will be on our website. So thank you very much.